This is the ERP Advisor.
Today's episode, Roadmap for Post-Go-Live Optimization of your ERP System.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's CPE webinar, Roadmap for Post-Go-Live Optimization of your ERP System. In this CPE presentation, our presenter will be discussing how, after a successful ERP go-live, most business leaders want to take a hiatus from the intensity, expense, and disruption of managing an implementation, and the furthest thing from their mind is optimizing their new software. However, before a new system can truly revolutionize business operations, executives must freshly consider the organization's strategy with the new possibilities available to them with a more modern software platform. Our presenter today, Shawn Windle, will lay the groundwork for reimagining the future of your business with a roadmap for post-go-live optimizations. Today's learning objectives. During this seminar, we will cover the following. Revisit your business's strategy and how your original criteria for success are either being met or not being met in your new ERP. Revisit and prioritize future enhancement requests documented during your implementation. Perform new analysis of gaps in processes, identifying opportunities for enhancement with customizations, reports, or best-of-breed bolt-ons. Identify any gaps with technical staff, in-house, support firm, staff augmentation, etc., and determine the best plan to fill based on available resources. And finally, we'll help you develop a roadmap and budget for new enhancements, as well as a resource plan which will support the organization's strategy. Today's presentation is valid for 1 CPE credit. In order to receive CPE credit, each attendee is required to attend the full 50-minute presentation, as well as engage and answer all of the polling questions asked throughout the presentation. If you are in need of CPE credit for today's presentation, please leave your name in the chat of this Zoom, or you can send an email to elizabeth.jones@erpadvisorsgroup.com for record, and you will be issued a certificate for CPE. Elizabeth's going to drop that email in the chat, so if you don't get it, let us know. At the end of today's presentation, there will be a short question and answer period. If you have a question for our presenter, please add it in the chat section of this Zoom. Some I will address during the call, but if I cannot, we will address it at the end. Shawn Windle is our presenter for today. Shawn is the founder and managing principal of ERP Advisors Group based in Denver, Colorado. Shawn has worked in the enterprise software industry for almost 30 years. He started his career at Accenture and Arthur Andersen Business Consulting and moved into the software industry with Oracle as a technology product manager. There are only a few people in the world with the practical software experience that Shawn has gained with helping hundreds of clients across many industries with selecting and implementing a wide variety of enterprise solutions. His podcast, The ERP Advisor, has hundreds of episodes with tens of thousands of downloads and is featured on prominent podcast platforms such as Apple and Spotify. Shawn, if you're ready, I will pass the presentation over to you.
Okay, sounds great, Rebecca. Sounds okay, and we're ready to go?
Yep, you sound great. Whenever you're ready.
Let's do it. All right. Thank you for your introduction too, as always. She does such a great job. All right. It's good to see everybody, at least from me to you. I can't see you. But really excited to talk to you about our topic today, which is pretty interesting. We're going to spend about 50 minutes going through this, but I do want you to know that as you have questions, you can ask them through the chat, and then the team is going to monitor them, and we should be able to sprinkle them throughout. I will end off with a few minutes at the end for sure, available for some questions there too, but would love to make this as interactive as possible because otherwise you're just going to be hearing me talk a whole lot. But hopefully you're very excited about the topic as I am. Chances are, if you're listening to this today or even into the future, that you are looking at some kind of a change with your ERP, your enterprise resource planning software. We've done other webinars and things on what ERP stands for, enterprise resource planning. But today, as Rebecca said, we're going to talk a lot about revisiting your business strategy, related to the criteria for success being met or not with your new ERP. So with that, let's jump in. So here's where we sort of pick up the topic. We are going to be talking through, you did it. You got your ERP in place and you are like, thank goodness you made it. Hopefully you have, all parts of everybody's bodies are still intact, and like you're like you made it. Like that's really, really well done. As we say here, you're now live with your phase one ERP. Very, very, very well done. And let's say that you went through your needs analysis, your selection, your implementation, your data migration, your integrations, your change management, your requirements analysis, your design, your development, your testing, your training, and then your go live, right? So that's why I say it's like really, really well done because there's a lot of stuff to it. So make sure you do all that stuff too, by the way. If maybe you're looking at doing an ERP implementation, but make sure you do it. So we did all that stuff. Now we went live. And when we went live, what that meant was over a period of time, different people started to use the software. Maybe the first day we went live, we started entering orders into the system. And then the first week we did our first AP run. Then, within the first couple of weeks, we had all the people throughout the organization. They could have been entering time. We could be entering manufacturing orders. We could be doing scheduling. There's many, many things that you could do. But remember that when you go live, you basically have different people coming into the system at different times. So we got through that. Then, of course, we got to the first month end. And at the first month end, that's where probably a lot of you that are on the call that are certified public accountants, as accounting managers, as senior accountants, as controllers, even CFOs, you did your first month end close. That's awesome, right? Like that's incredible. And you got through that, right? Oh my gosh, there's all these weird numbers. What happened? Oh, the data didn't come over correctly, or the chart of accounts wasn't quite right, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, things happen, like they just do. So be ready for it. That's the key. But now let's say we go out another month here, as we say here, after about your second month end close, it really is time to go back and look at and say, what do we understand about this? Where are we now? What happened? And, I want to break. Hopefully by now you are like taking a vacation, as a matter of fact, too. So maybe you even do a little bit of a vacation. Let's just put that in there too. So now what do you do? And this is where we're going to jump into more of our content here. So if we go to our next slide. The most important thing for sure is to make sure that you have adequate support in place. Now, your implementation, by the time we get to kind of this second month, but your implementation partner, pardon me, by the time you've gotten to the second month, has had consultants that have been working with you the whole time. You're going to start to see them kind of fade away. They kind of, they're kind of like, whoa, wait, where are you going? Hey, come back here, right? Well, yeah, because the consultants that you worked with that were so great, they go on to the next project, and they need to go on to the next project because there's other companies and there's other organizations out there that need as much help as you did. So those key people are out. Now, that same implementation partner, though, pitched you, if you didn't realize this, probably earlier in the process, on providing support. Now, what that support is it's a different team. I'm just going to tell you. Now, if you do get support with the partner that implemented, again, we have tons of material on. When I say an implementation partner, what that means, right? But that's usually a third party that's maybe not the software vendor that came in to learn your requirements and build out the app and help you go live. Right now, sometimes you can use the software vendor too to do all that work, and they have a support team, but it's really a separate team. So anyway, long story short, you now have that support team. We got to make sure that they're in place because you are going to need some help even past that second month end close going forward. So in our experience, what we like to do is we like to see that we've got a contract for about 6 to 12 months of some support people that are going to be with us for at least that long. I mean, frankly, you should really do it for even longer. But I'm just going to talk about 6 to 12 months for now for a reason. It's best to do the time and material projects or time and material support contracts, pardon me. But you don't have to. And some providers will only do a fixed price for minimum hours per month. That's how they get their recurring revenue, by the way. So that's a whole nother topic. you end up paying for something whether you use it or not. So you really want to look at the contract that your support provider, might be the implementation partner, might be the software vendor, has put in front of you, so that you really, really do see, oh, okay, I get 10 hours a month. Okay, well, use the 10 hours a month then if you're going to be paying for it. Oh, but Shawn, I don't have any problems. And the last thing I want to do is call these people because I just talked to them for a year and I'm kind of tired of them. Like, man, I get it. I get it. But you are paying for it. So maybe if there's a little problem, maybe you need a little report, or maybe you need a little change to a screen, or maybe you're using the system one way, but you thought it was going to be another. It was designed another way. Get those things fixed, right? You can use that time with those people usually to do those kinds of changes. But you I hate it when I say gotta. You have to. I only say that because the phone, Siri, the AI on Apple, when you say gotta, it literally puts a gotta on a text. I'm like, no, going to. So anyway, you're going to need great resources too. Um, it would be far better if those people also were familiar with your instance. And when I say instance, what I mean is, let's say your version of Epicor or Kinetic. Let's just say you implemented Epicor Kinetic. You have your own instance of that code running in a cloud, right? In a server someplace, probably Virginia. I don't know, actually. I have to remember that about Epicor. They use a lot of Azure, Microsoft data centers. But anyway, long story short, your app is running someplace and it is your instance with your configurations in it. That's what it means by your instance. That's what I'm trying to say. So it would be great if you had support resources that were familiar with how your specific instance was configured. Now, sometimes you don't get even that, right? Because again, the people that did the configuration are on to the next deal. But anyway, you get the point here that you need to have some experts in the software available to help you support the application going forward, for sure. That's pretty obvious. I probably didn't have to spend that much time with that. But there is one more point. Rebecca's telling me to get going here, but there was one more point. Go back one more time. I'm sorry. That last point on there is really, really, really important, though. You probably do need some internal support people as well. So during your implementation, it's always best practice to hire somebody that can sort of learn, or maybe you have somebody, better yet, who's on staff already, who's pretty strong technically and business wise, and they can participate through the implementation, and they can kind of get to know your instance from inside also on your side. So, our best practice is really to have both an external that you can call. See, this is why we'd rather do it time and materials, because maybe you don't need them, and to have somebody internal, because there will be constant enhancements that you're going to be making going forward. So having that person is really kind of a strategic advantage to the application. Okay, enough said. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So now we've kind of got the basic, that's like the step zero, right? Meaning like the very first rudiment is make sure you got support. But now what do we do? And what we can do here is we can start looking backwards. We actually have the luxury now, because hopefully the app is running and things are okay, and people are actually like using the system. Let's just go backwards and let's make sure that the goals that we had for the original system or the original release, maybe it was a 1.0 release, or it was, we were going to implement an ERP, whatever you call it, however formal it is. Look at that and decide what goals did we not achieve, or maybe fell short with, that now we should do. So you can sort of look at your business strategy. Is there anything missing that you really need or want in your ERP but didn't get, right? The answer is always yes. And it's interesting how we say business strategy here, because it's not just go back and look at the software requirements and the technical specification documents of things that didn't get delivered. We'd rather that you actually look at your business and say, what's changed? What are new things that have come up that are really important to us? And let's use those, the sort of business strategy, as the impetus to identify what we should do going forward. And you might have some users that are kind of upset. They're probably already even telling you right now, oh, I wanted this and I didn't get it. Okay, but as long as you're using the software and it's working, that was a win. Yay. My goodness, that's great. But there will be other things that people will share with you, I'm sure, very gently and kindly, or you might get voicemails in the middle of the night or emails. What were you thinking? We hope that's not the case. But anyway, you are going to also hear users that are going to give you some feedback too. And so you sort of can kind of put this list of gaps, if you will, and then prioritize those by when they need to be filled. So this is a really interesting conversation because, well, Shawn, don't I just do it all? It's like, no, don't. You really have to get the list of what's known as best as you can, and then do like a, low, medium, high prioritization on each item. And chances are, the highs are things that do need to happen. Again, you're going to know they're high. This isn't like some crazy process, right? By the pain people are still feeling or by the desire to get something. I mean, sometimes at this point in the process with some clients, they're 2, 3, 4 months in, the software that they're using has made updates that are really helpful to their business, and they're reading the release notes. That's another tip on their application, because especially if you're a cloud-based system, your app is updating whether you know it or not. And so by the time you go live, you might have the opportunity to take advantage of some new code there. So that's why you want to prioritize low, medium, and high, and then sort of look at, okay, what do we want to do now? And what do we want to do within a few months? And then what do we want to do later? Very simple kind of prioritization based off of need and time. Okay, go ahead and go to our next slide. So now for our immediate gaps, our immediate needs, now remember we have that step 0 with our support partner, right? Now we can go back to them and we can say, okay, we're going to need your help with these things. And this is the list of what we're looking for. Like we say here, hopefully they can incorporate these into the support contract that you already have. It sort of, again, depends on the number of hours that your contract covers. But overall, we would say try to limit this next sort of release to, a reasonable amount of hours, right? I mean, I'll just give you my rough rule of thumb here that just use hourly rate at $200. Now you can pay more. Isn't that lovely? You can probably pay less, right? But just use that number to give you an idea of budget of what we're talking about here. But our desire for our clients is not to do like a ginormous release in a month or 2 or 3 after their main go live. We're saying that you should just do kind of a little bit. Don't make any major changes, at least not yet. And chances are you spent a little more than you thought you were going to. That's okay. That's not a failure on your project. Now, if you thought you were going to spend 500,000 and you spent 5 million, you should have called us out. That's all I'm going to say. Don't do that, please. I hope that doesn't happen for you. I truly don't. But you are going to be done with that phase 1. You're going to have spent a lot of money here too. So what we have found is that if you can just kind of appease the complainers, I'm just going to say it, look at the business strategy and identify, hey, what are some huge gaps that we have to do here? And if we can kind of shoehorn that into maybe $20,000 to $60,000 of development while our implementation people are still with us. Now, again, it might be more their support team, but the support team can get access to the implementation people. Do it. Get that sort of 1.5 release, if you want to call it that, right? 1.0, say, was the actual implementation, but 0.5 meaning it's a minor, right? Get that done. And of course, if you have an internal ERP specialist, they might be able to do the work. That's even better, frankly. But if not, then have them shadow the implementation partner's work. And that's what's more likely, because I think you're going to have like a depth, like deep changes that you might have to make that you want the specialist to do versus your person who might not have been a Acumatica developer for 10 years like your Acumatica partner is. So those are some good things for sure to keep in mind. All right. So there's I don't know what to call that little icon thing. My team is quite funny with what they do with my image, but there you go. That's like gold. That's what those little tips are there with the knuckles. I kind of do look like that with my blue thing. I'm not wearing that little Speedo thing today. Maybe another day. But anyway, so it's important to start tracking your software contract terms now. Also, this is something that a lot of clients are so focused on the app and the functionality, and is it meeting the needs, and it's not meeting the needs, and am I going to get upset? People are going to be upset at me because they can't do blah, da, 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 da. That's a lot to maintain for sure. But you do really need to pick up the contract again and just be aware of what the terms of the agreement are. And you really should write down somewhere, what modules, user accounts are purchased, the contract terms themselves, payment schedule, renewal caps, etc. While it's still fresh. It's important. And one of our little tips here, that's the Shawnee man, I think we call him, Shawnee ERP man, is put your renewal in your calendar. And set a reminder for a minimum of 6 months before the actual date of expiration. And I could talk about this one for like 3 weeks. I'm not going to. I did put together a kind of a key strategy. Well, it wasn't really me. It was more our marketing team because they're amazing, with Rebecca especially. Erica helped on that one too. But we have a phenomenal white paper on the things to look for with your software contracts and the levers that you have with negotiation. Well, guess what? Those are the things also then that over time will renew too. So you need to be aware of them. But the key thing I would say here is if you don't negotiate your contract, you will renew it and you won't even know it. And it could be that the renewal terms in your contract escalate the price a lot for some vendors of recent. I think they fixed that, by the way. I'm not going to name any names. That kind of upset a lot of people with that. But your contract, and you built it and negotiated it this way so that it would renew. Because if it doesn't, people can't get access to the ERP. There's going to be some upset people. So you've got to make sure that we're asking you to proactively look into the future here and say, okay, we just went through an implementation, Shawn. Like, why in the world do I care about the renewal? Well, for some of the vendors, they only do 12-month contracts. So if you negotiated renewal caps, hint, hint, then your contract will renew, but only be limited to the cap that you negotiated. Most of the vendors will do that, by the way. You can negotiate renewal caps. Or let's say your software contract was for 3 years. Well, maybe your implementation took a year and a half. I hope it didn't, but maybe it did. So let's say it did take a year and a half, and now you only have a year and a half till the renewal. I'm telling you to look at it a year from now. Put it in the calendar so you remember that. You don't want to be renewing your software contract at the last minute, because who has the leverage there? Do you? No. Little Shawnee ERP man says you need to have the leverage earlier, and you will have it when you negotiate within, say, 6 months of that time where the contract terminates. Ooh, there's a lot in there. Okay, let's go to the next slide. If anybody has any questions, stick them in the chat too. So, true or false? You should assume your new ERP meets all its originally intended goals. True or false? Please do make sure you answer the CPE question for CPE credit as well. Make sure if you've been asleep, now's the time to wake up. Hopefully this is more interesting than sleeping. But the thing about this question, which I actually really love this, is we just sort of assume that you had a lot of goals up front, a whole lot, and you should have. And that maybe, as you start looking at the correct answer here in just a few seconds, give you a few more seconds here to finish that up. Very, very few implementations actually. I'm just going to tell you here in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go to the answer. Very few implementations deliver all of the goals that were intended at the beginning. And that's because the client doesn't understand the magnitude of the implementation and what they're about to get into. And they have all these requirements over here that they need met, they want met. But then by implementing, they get all these other requirements filled over here. And all of a sudden, maybe these are less important. So things like that happen a lot. All right, let's move on. So we're going to talk about kind of this long-term roadmap still. So now that you're stable, right? What we just talked about basically was stabilizing with getting in support, finding out what was needed and wanted, and then getting that first release done. Now you're stable. You've got to make a very important decision though. Do you pause any further ERP work or keep going? Most organizations, frankly, if you've done this before, for those that are listening to this, you could probably attest to this. They pause. You got like a business to run, and you've got, you're buying businesses, selling businesses, you're hiring people, you're terminating people, you're starting new business lines, you're going into new geographies around the world, or maybe you're just plain tired and it's time for your kids' softball tournaments for the summer, and she's going to get a scholarship. And so you're traveling all over the country, or maybe even we have international people that listen to this and it's the summer and we're taking the whole summer off. So I don't care about ERP, right? Okay, that's cool. I get it. And we may have spent a little extra money than we thought. So it's true that there are reasons why organizations pause, and those reasons aren't bad. They are what they are for sure. But you do need to understand, and hopefully I'm getting to you before you're in that position. So maybe you're implementing now, or you have just recently implemented, you're thinking about implementing. You really need to plan that you will have additional needs into the future. And it's not a bad thing, right? I think a lot of people look at, oh, here we go. Sorry, Erica. As most people know, Erica's my business partner and my wife. So I always love these marriage analogies. She's always starting to cringe when I say them. So she'll be all right though. She's not here. But it's like when you get married, you don't just like get married and then that's it. You have to keep creating the relationship day after day after day, which I try to remind myself of. I probably need to do that more. I hope you guys are good. Sometimes I'm not. That's for real. That's the truth. But it's the same with an ERP. We went live with an ERP. Okay, cool. But now you got the next day and the next day and the next day. There's a cycle that you're going to go through with this thing called your enterprise resource planning package, that if you can stay ahead of it, and there's a lot of developments and things that are going on, you can build a software change process now. Which is basically a way to manage the ongoing change that you and your stakeholders are going to want with this ERP. So we call that the software change process. Let's talk a little bit more about that, if I didn't lose everybody with the marriage analogy. Good. So like we talked about here with so we're talking about software change process. So that first bullet here is a little bit of a summarization that as soon as you can, get the ERP enhancements into your annual budget. So that 1.5 release that I told you about, we may or may not have had that budgeted, but we just had to do it. Now we're at the point where the ERP is functioning. It's pretty good. Maybe instead of people banging on your door threatening you that they need to have this in the app, maybe they're just leaving little sticky notes saying, it would really be helpful if. But so we move over from sort of like these mission critical functionality needs to more of what we call enhancements, which are things that we can use within the application that need to be built out, right? Enhance the application, the user experience. You really should build that into your annual budget. And the amount that I put in, Shawn, how much should I put in? I don't know. We just threw a number up here, about 100K, about 40 development hours per month or so. That's a lot of money. That's like a person, right? I mean, that's depending on skill set and all that stuff, fully loaded costs and everything. But, it might be 50, it might be 100, it might be more depending on your needs, but you get an idea of the chunk of money that we're talking about, because there will be development and enhancements that you need to do. And some months it might be 0, other months it might be a couple hundred hours. or over a series of time. So the key thing is that you're building that into the budget so that you're not surprised about, like especially if you're IT or even some organizations, when they do the budget, for ERP, they may budget those dollars to the department that wants it, right? So it might go to manufacturing. It's not just IT. So you want to make sure that you've built some numbers into your annual budget. Okay, I could talk about that forever because we're all CPAs. I am inactive. You're not. But the key thing there is that you're thinking with those dollars. Then we like to do what we call a change control board. And this is, we use a lot of acronyms here. This is a group of people, of subject matter experts, or SMEs. Somebody calls them SMEs. I like the SMEs, but I call them SMEs. But these are, say, 3 or 4 or 5 people that come together, and maybe it's on a monthly basis. And that group is going to decide what enhancements get put into the application on an ongoing basis, right? We say voluntel instead of volunteer. One of the persons should probably be the lead of the board, called the chairman of the change control board, and then the rest of the are members, and they will all work together to basically document what the enhancement requests are. We'll have people throughout the organization, other SMEs, document what they are, but they're going to bring these enhancements to the board to review. And the board will help to finalize what enhancements go in where based on the high level, rough orders of magnitude. You may hear that phrase, ROM, rough orders of magnitude of cost and the impact to the business. So what I said just really sounds pretty complex when I just listen to what I say. It's not. Just get a couple people together that know the software and care about the software and are going to want some enhancements in it. And they'll bring enhancements to that board. And then the board can sort of organize into releases, basically, what enhancements should go where. And that's basically what you want to do. Don't make it more complex than that. And the board needs to agree, though, on what's going to happen. And you would think, oh my gosh, how are they ever going to agree, Shawn? No. These are good people. These are people that are been in the business for a long time. They know the software. They want the right thing. They'll figure it out. But the key thing is that you have stakeholders, your main stakeholders, deciding on what's going to go into the app. It's not just the controller, or it's not just the IT department that decides what goes in. You may, if you're a manufacturer, you will have people from planning. You can have supply chain people, accounting, manufacturing, and maybe sales if you have kind of the CRM thing built into it too, or even a separate, like have those people come together. Here's the enhancements that we need, and then sort of organize them in a way that everybody kind of agrees, all right, this is the priority we should go with. Sounds complex, but you can do it. And then, like we talk about here, we're gonna accumulate all the enhancement requests. We're gonna set an initial priority, and then the board modifies and approves the roadmap. It'd be better if you had one person on that committee that could kind of be the secretary, if you will, spreadsheet jockey. That's usually me because I type fast. But you get it all together, set the priority, get the board to approve it. And then there is somebody from that group, which is, like I think we say on the last point, there is somebody, of course, from IT who's there too. I think I left them off the list there, but there definitely should be, especially if you have that app specialist that you hired earlier, because they're the one that really knows what's going on with the app. But they would work with a partner then, could be your support people, whoever that is, right, to scope what that implementation would look like and the dollars, and would negotiate that, get that in place. And then our lead here would also work with the subject matter experts that are affected by the work to ensure that their needs and wants are met, and to ensure that they're doing testing, et cetera, et cetera. So could be super complex. That might be you on a ladder with your ginormous sticky notes. That would be so cool. I would love to. We actually had some sticky notes that size one time. But it's a good idea to just say, okay, what goes in first, what goes in last, what goes in the middle, put them on the different notes, and then take that note, like take your gigantic sticky note to your partner and say, here, I want these. What's this going to cost? When can you do it by? Lots of different ways you can do this for sure. But the key point is that now you know there will be additional work that you're going to do in the future. You probably knew that, but now you really know it. But the key thing is plan for it. Get the budget, get the money in the budget, like we talked about. Get this team together, this change control board together, have a lead that sort of knows what's going on. Everybody else probably has more day jobs that they're focused on, but they've got to get their input into this process, and you'll do it. And you'll see that a simple process like this can help you sustain so much value out of this huge investment that you made in your ERP. There you go. All right. So here's the next question. Here it is, the next polling question. What should be included in your software change process? Prioritizing future enhancement requests made during implementation. Sounds pretty good. Implementing core functionality that did not make it into phase one. That might be helpful. And then also maybe develop your budget. Or D, all of the above. So I'll give you a couple seconds there to fill that out. As you can tell, when we do a lot of these CPE events, I think we're every quarter now we do one, but we do a lot of podcasts, our ERP Advisor that we have, and we do a ton of other podcasts with other ERP leaders. We have the Leaders in ERP series, and we're meeting with implementation partners online. We just did one last week that was pretty cool with a really great Cloud Suite industrial partner. The goal here is to give you actionable information. We want you to have actionable stuff. So let's wrap up that polling question. And the answer is all the above. And see, now you know it's actionable. You know there is a life after getting married. Oh, I mean, implementing your ERP. We keep getting better and better. I don't know about you guys, but man, Erica and I are like, woo, we're actually doing good. Good. Enough about that. So now so you've got your process in place. You're identifying your change control process is in place. You've got your board in place. You're identifying enhancements and things that are kind of organically coming up through the organization. Whew, that's it, right? Oh, that's wonderful. No, but wait, there's more. As I say, don't just let tactical needs drive your ongoing ERP enhancements. That's a very technical phrase. What that basically means is there's a lot more that you can do with your ERP for sure. And look, you may just hit a point where all you're doing is like those internal enhancements, and that's all you can do, and that's all you need to do, et cetera, right? This is where, let's say, your gal that you brought in during your implementation that got to know your software, right? Another part of their job is to identify these other goodies, I guess you could call them. I think they're goodies. They might be really baddies if they're over budget when you implement them, but there are other things that you can do to your ERP that may make sense to do. So some of those things that are listed here are sophisticated bolt-ons and modules. So let's say, again, going back to the manufacturing industry or even distribution or even services, and you have the need for advanced planning of resources. We think of advanced planning and scheduling. We think of utilization of resource utilization for long term. Natalie, who is on that front page, by the way, she's great. She runs she's our consulting administrative manager. And she's looking 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road in terms of our own utilization of hours, of billable hours, right? So there's tools that can help you with those kinds of things. That might be kind of cool. It might be kind of cool if our ERP worked with our shop floor machines, that maybe there's some data from the machines if we're a process manufacturer that'd be helpful for us to have in the ERP, and we could compare everything from real-time weights to average costs, and what we think the weights are based on those average costs, right? We could compare those, and that'd be pretty cool. There's so many ways that we can integrate our application. Well, we did one integration with our main bank, but we have 3 other banks that we need, or the payroll system. We just got the payroll file uploaded, but we want to have a whole employee lifecycle management integrated with the payroll system and the HR and the ERP. There's tons of integrations that might make sense for your business. Of course, there's always more reporting and analytics. I mean, that's the reason why you put the system in there, for heaven's sakes, is so that people would have access to data that they didn't before. And we can run analytics in terms of, I mean, anything, any part of the business. You want to know really key statistics about a business, a department, a section, a unit, a person, even. Having that built into your ERP can really, give you the value that you really wanted in the first place. And of course, we can't, well, I won't talk about that yet. Process automation. I would love to talk more about that one than that last point. But the real reason why you put an ERP, it's sort of a triangle, whether you knew this or not, was you had to get all your base transactions in one system or sort of cleaned up and standardized, right? Then you had your core business processes are now hopefully more in an ERP versus in a spreadsheet. But now we want to get into automation. We want to automate those business processes. So the easiest example is procure to pay. We're actually going to do some automation. What? ERP advisors automating? Oh my gosh, it's great. We're going to use a best of breed app to do our AP process faster, easier, with more internal controls built into it. Kind of makes sense, right? So process automation gives you those kinds of functions. You can do that throughout your whole business. But of course, the pinnacle of the top of the pyramid, though, is that the system does the work for you. And that's what AI is. Don't buy any of those solutions. That's not really true. But what is true about artificial intelligence or AI is that there are so many practical solutions that are coming out around this that you really do need and should be looking at how that can not just enhance your ERP, but ultimately help your business, your nonprofit, your government agency with automating what you're doing more, right? And it is true that those opportunities are out there for AI. So just know that the goodies, if you will, are abundant. And you could spend millions of dollars on some of these things, and you might not need to do that, but there are going to be some things out there into the future. It could be pretty major if you implemented like a new reporting or an analytics framework. It could be a pretty major effort because you're getting data from all these different sources and you're building in key metrics that you want to measure, et cetera, et cetera. So there could be a good chunk of work here for sure. So know that also is out there into your future. Good. Whew. I don't know about you guys, but maybe you're just done. I think the person there sitting on that beanbag, you're like in a Zen position with your laptop and you're like, Shawn, everything you just said is loading. Like, you mean there's really all this stuff that we have to do into the future? But the answer really is no, you don't have to do these things. It's sort of the mistake, frankly, that I think a lot of organizations do, that they don't think into the future that these opportunities will be there. And this, again, is why you have somebody in the organization who's your internal champion for ERP. You might have a team of people that do this, but having somebody who's familiar with the opportunities and what's out there will help to manifest those within your organization versus you just get a bunch of you're pummeled from your salesperson. Hey, you should buy our omni-channel e-commerce solutions, or, we're going to sell to you this EDI stuff or whatever. Like, there's a bazillion solutions out there for sure. But you as a team with your change control board, with your leads, you can organize this in a way that you can really leverage these things and do them right. I mean, we've seen clients' business fundamentally change with even just e-commerce solutions, right? I mean, we don't see that as much now because it's kind of done. But there's still so many opportunities to get information out to your vendors and your customers, not just your catalog, but other things that you can do around e-com, or even we're seeing some really cool next generation EDI integrations where you have organizations like SPS Commerce that are out there with some of the things they're doing with helping clients to recuperate money from some of the big box stores that are charging them these fees for not recording transactions correctly when they actually did, right? I mean, that's kind of cool. Get some money back. And then getting your ERP visibility and process execution capabilities out to partners. It could be third-party logistics providers. We're seeing some super cool things happening with real-time access. I mean, you guys see it with your phones where we get UPS is telling you, hey, the package shipped. I had one thing that came in. I wish I had it. I got this really cool Leatherman for Father's Day. And, it's one you open up. It's got the pliers and all the stuff. I got notifications from 4 different places that thing got delivered. It was pretty wild. But that's pretty cool when you can start exposing the enterprise data to your partners and others. And, there's a lot of opportunity, this last point here, around building deep integrations to financial institutions. So, being able to, like, in real time do an ACH from your system after the approvals are done, of course. But, why should you put in a payable in your ERP and then go to the bank and do it? So there's things that you need to kind of keep in mind for future references that could really make a big difference here. Cool. Let's go to the next slide. So here's the next question. True or false? Most organizations implement the cool stuff after their first go live. What do you guys think? I'm interested to see what, I don't know if I see the results of the polls, but this again, I wish this is something that, man, we should have told like every client we've ever had, and we've had over 600 projects, probably should have told them this earlier. Maybe in the sales process we do, but all the cool stuff that you're really going to want, that's pretty hard, right? And all the basic stuff, let's get that in first, and then we can talk about the cool stuff. I feel like I'm talking to Erica right now about our marriage. Honey, just take the boring, old, plain stuff first. Let's get that right. And then let's see what our answer is here when everybody's done pulling. Good. Perfect. Then we'll do the cool stuff. But like put the lid back on the toothpaste and other things that you got to get all that kind of basic stuff. And then in the future, let's get our inventory, bill of materials, and our item master correct with correct costing, and get our chart of accounts refactored so that we don't have a gazillion accounts, and bring it down to a smaller amount. That's kind of what ERP is about in the first release or two, but then there's a ton of cool stuff you can do thereafter. Good. All right. And at the end of the day, you have to understand too that the software, whenever I say, that's always my internal indicator of being like, I need to remember that I know this so that I tell more people this. You really have to have great resources for your ERP projects. The more enhancements you want to do, the more internal technical staff you have. But the more complex enhancements you want, the more you'll need external resources that are expensive. Yeah, so that's the way it works. I mean, really anything in life, when you want good stuff and you want reliable things, it's going to cost you some money. So the key here, though, is to know it first off, identify what you need. I mean, you can call us anytime. Amongst all of us, we can answer any questions you have about what's reasonable to be paying. And there will be a wide range, right? I prefer that you go talk to some vendors, go get some costs before you even call me, because I kind of need you to be a little bit like, oh my gosh, this is a lot more complex than I thought it was, before you're really even going to want a consultant, frankly. So go get that information, but just know that, your ongoing enhancements, you're going to be spending some money here with some key people, but man, it's usually worth it. Now, sometimes it's not. There's some vendors that are renowned for you spend a lot of money with, you don't get very far. So you do need to watch out for that for sure. But it's best to not hire until you really know what you need. That's the key thing there. So next question here, as we're kind of coming around the bend. Staffing can make or break your ERP projects. Is that true or false? Let's see what you guys think here. And if you get this one wrong, I need you to go back and listen to the complexity of this presentation later and realize, oh my gosh, there's a lot. And maybe while you're answering that too, Elizabeth, you popped on. Is there a question? Good to see you, by the way. Nope, she's off. Okay, good. All right, we'll go to our next answer here. The answer, of course, is true. And just know it. It's going to be important. And do business with people that you like and that you trust, because you're kind of trusting your job with them. So do that. Cool. All right, good. Just in time here. So let's go through this summary. So of course, it can be a lot of work optimizing your system post go live, but just plan for it. That's what we would ask you to do, is just know that there's going to be things that are going to come into the future, and you're not done when you go live with your ERP. Now, I don't say that sometimes to people that are going through their project because they don't want to hear it. And that's okay, because you got to get through that first project for sure. You got to make sure that you're successful with that. But just know, especially because hopefully as you're listening to this CPE, you're doing it proactively. So I love that. That's great. So just know it's going to happen. Start with the vital enhancements and go from there. It's not a race. Of course, it's about positioning your business, your ERP, for future success. So those things that the gotta haves, I like that category now. I'm going to start saying that more for our clients. The gotta haves, you gotta get them. You gotta do it. So do it. And don't overlook customizations, best of breed solutions, bolt-ons, whiz bang solutions. Maybe we call the next category the whiz bang solutions, because those enhancements, they're likely the reason you underwent an ERP implementation to begin with. So they're out there, right? And having access to the right ERP resource is crucial for your ongoing success. Hopefully you can build some of that expertise internally. We would rather see you do that. Maybe you don't need, maybe it's just a financial system, just, the thing that you're depending your entire job on is just the financial system. But maybe it is a simple system and you just have like a power user, one of those subject matter experts we talked about is a superpower user. They're really great with the app. And they're the ones that implement it, right? Or really are looked at for enhancements, et cetera, going on. And then you can look at, maybe you've got a team of people that are enhancing this. We have some customers that are building like custom solutions on their ERP, and they have 2-3 people, maybe even bigger teams that are doing things into the future there. So just know that you can have that. So the right resources are definitely crucial. And then listen, this is what we do. ERP Advisors Group. When I came up with that name, I couldn't believe it was available, because that's exactly what we do, is advise on things like this. So we have a ton of stuff on our website. I think even this next slide might have some contact information on it. This is the next thing we're going to be talking about. I do want to talk about this in a second, so leave it here. But we can help for sure. Info at ERP Advisors Group, go to the website. That's enough of a sales pitch. But I really mean this, that the more you know about these ERP projects, the more likely you are to be a success. And at the end of the day, that's all we want, is for folks to be successful with their ERPs. And to that point, our next event actually is kind of helpful, depending on where you're at in your life cycle. You may be looking at software, you might even be evaluating it. You should definitely come to this, because you'd think doing an ERP demo is simple. It's not, right? Show me the software. They're going to show you only the good stuff. And we're not going to bring up any dating analogies, are we, Rebecca? But that's kind of what happens. So we're going to talk to you about how to see the real deal, see what's really going on. We're going to get into some of those things at that demo, or that, I feel like everything is a demo, but at that podcast. Rebecca, you better take over for me here.
I'll take over. I try to rein it in. That's why I
Yes.
turned on my camera so you could see me hiding in the background. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today's call. And as Shawn said, I'll share some contact information for anybody who needs help. If you have any questions about today's presentation, please let us know. You can call or email us. I'm always available, rebecca.mccabe@erpadvisorsgroup.com. Shawn is Shawn at erpadvisorsgroup.com. Pretty straightforward. Or you have Elizabeth's email, which is also in the chat. Also, if you would like a copy of the deck from today's presentation, please let us know. You can email Elizabeth when you're getting your certificate, and she will also send that along. And again, if you need CPE credit, please make sure that you are emailing Elizabeth at elizabeth.jones@erpadvisorsgroup.com, and that you answered each of the polling questions. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Erica, and we can answer those for you if you had any issues with the presentation. Be sure to join us for our next event, which is scheduled for Thursday, July 17th, as you guys can see up on the screen. how to navigate ERP demos successfully. We're going to dispel a lot of the confusion surrounding software demos and help project sponsors get the most out of that demonstration process. Just to clarify, this is not for a CPE, but is still a lot of great information. For more details and to register, please go to erpadvisorsgroup.com. And then I'll show Shawn's information just in case anybody needs it. ERPadvisorsgroup.com is one of the country's top independent enterprise software advisory firms. ERP Advisors Group advises mid to large-sized businesses on selecting and implementing business applications from enterprise resource planning, customer relationship management, human capital management, business intelligence, and other enterprise applications, which equate to millions of dollars in software deals each year across many industries. This has been another episode of the ERP Advisor. Thank you again for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.